It was the kind of life that many people would envy. I had a stable job, a beautiful home, and a loving family. My name is Alex, and I was proud to be a devoted husband to Sarah. We shared a bond that felt unbreakable. At least that's what I thought. Every morning, I woke up to the soothing sound of my son playing with his toys. It brought a smile to my face, a reminder of what truly mattered in my life. Sarah would peek into our son's room, her laughter echoing as she teased him about his messy bedhead. Those moments were precious, the kind that created memories I felt I could never forget. But looking back, I realize now that not everything was as perfect as it appeared. There were whispers of discontent, small things I chose to overlook in the name of love. Sarah would often get distracted, her gaze drifting off into the distance, a frown creasing her forehead as she stared out the window. When I would ask her what was wrong, she'd simply smile and say, "I'm just tired, babe." I used to brush it off, convinced that every couple goes through rough patches. I was committed to being the attentive husband, making dinner, taking our son out for ice cream, and planning little surprises to keep the spark alive between us. I thought that our love would conquer any storm, but life has a way of revealing its true colors when you least expect it. One evening, I came home a little later than usual from work. I had picked up a pizza, something to lighten the mood, and braced myself to see Sarah and our son's faces light up with joy. Instead, what I found was the last thing I expected, the smell of something that felt sweet but tasted like betrayal. As I stepped into the living room, I noticed Sarah's phone buzzing incessantly on the coffee table. A message peeked through, showing a contact I knew all too well, Tom, my best friend. My heart raced as I grabbed her phone, curiosity intertwining with a sense of dread. What I found shattered my world. "Can't wait to see you tonight," the message read. Before I even realized what I was doing, I called her name. "Sarah." She rushed into the room, her expression shifting from surprise to horror as she saw me holding her phone. "What are you doing, Alex?" she stammered. "Who's Tom to you?" I asked, my voice shaky yet firm. Her eyes widened, and for a second I saw fear, fear that I might uncover everything. "It's nothing, Alex," she blurted. "Nothing. This is our life," I shouted, emphasizing the realization that had pierced my heart. The argument that followed felt like watching my world collapse in slow motion. "You're never around," she screamed, her voice laced with anger that made her seem almost unrecognizable. "You're too busy working. You just don't get it." "No, I don't get it," I retorted, feeling a whirlwind of emotions battling within me. "I thought I was doing this for us." In that moment, every hidden resentment that had been buried underground suddenly erupted. Her accusations tumbled out, alleging I was distant and ungrateful for everything she did. I tried to defend myself, but my words fell flat against the tidal wave of her accusations. After what felt like hours, I walked away, my heart full of confusion and anger. I could hardly think straight as I stumbled into the quiet of our bedroom, the world around me dissolving into muted shades of gray. I had trusted Sarah with my entire being, and here I was, left grappling with the shards of our shattered marriage. Days turned into weeks. The loneliness wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I felt the painful sting of betrayal everywhere I went. Our friends, once a close-knit circle, now looked at me with a mixture of pity and discomfort. "I heard about you and Sarah," they'd say, their voices laced with awkwardness. I wanted to scream, to tell them the truth, but I kept it all bottled inside. Trust, which I thought would stand the test of time, had evaporated into thin air. As I sat in my empty house one night, the darkness creeping in, I found myself longing for something beyond pain and despair. I wanted to reclaim the life that had been stolen from me, not just the life with Sarah, but the life I had meticulously built. That's when Emily entered the picture. She had been a friend from college, someone I could confide in without fear of judgment. As I shared my heartache with her, I felt an ember of hope ignite within me. Emily listened with such compassion, offering words of comfort that gradually led me down a dark path I never thought I'd tread. "Maybe it's time for you to fight back, Alex," she said, her voice steady and encouraging. "You deserve better than this." Those words resonated deep within me. Perhaps it was time to reclaim my power and make Tom and Sarah feel what I had endured. The more I thought about it, the more determined I grew. And so began the transformation. I was no longer just a broken man. I was a man who harbored a burning desire for revenge. The fog of pain slowly gave way to a clearer vision, one where I would rise like a phoenix from the ashes of my heartbreak. I needed a plan, a way to get back at the people who had betrayed me. But more than that, I needed to remind myself that I was still standing, that I could still fight, even if the battle was ugly. The storm was coming, but so was I. Little did they know, I was ready to sleep with their lives, and my journey toward retribution had only just begun. The days blurred into nights, and the weight of betrayal hung over me like an unforgiving cloud. I was no longer just Alex, the devoted husband. I was a man on a mission, driven by the bitter taste of betrayal and the cold grip of despair that had once consumed me. But now, with every passing moment, that despair transformed into something steely and resolute. Revenge was my new anthem. Emily's words acted as the fuel stoking the flames of my revenge. "Maybe it's time for you to fight back, Alex. You deserve better than this." I replayed those words in my mind over and over again. With her support, I began plotting a way to take back control of the narrative that they had so ruthlessly stolen from me. As I steeled my resolve, I realized that I had to meticulously infiltrate Tom's life. I would pose as a friend while gathering intel crucial for my plan. It felt chillingly satisfying. I imagined how easily I could maneuver through Tom's world, hiding my true intentions behind a mask of camaraderie. The first step was simple. I reached out to Tom, casually texting him, "Hey man, how about we grab a drink this weekend?" To my surprise, he eagerly agreed. That sense of false friendship would be my key. As I drove to the bar that Saturday night, my heart raced, not from nervousness, but from the thrill of reclaiming my power. We met in a dimly lit corner booth. Tom was animated as always, spinning tales about his recent successes. I nodded with feigned enthusiasm, all the while studying him. I noticed how eager he was to talk about his business ventures. He bragged endlessly, attempting to mask a certain insecurity that lurked just beneath the surface. "Things are going great," Tom bragged as he sipped his beer. I'm closing a huge deal with some investors next week. You wouldn't believe the numbers." "Yeah, sounds impressive," I replied, carefully masking my disdain. "What's the company called again?" "Suntech Innovations," he said, puffing out his chest. I made a mental note. Weeks passed, and every moment spent with Tom felt like threading a needle through his life. I began to quietly gather information, piecing together the fractures hidden under his confident facade. He talked openly about his methods, his weaknesses, and even his fears about the upcoming deal. The more I learned, the more I devised my plan. I would use Tom's ambition against him. I didn't want to just ruin his business. I wanted to dismantle the pedestal he put himself on. Making him doubt himself was the first step, and from there I would escalate my plan. One evening, while Tom was boasting about his latest pitch, I brought up a rumor I had heard. "You know, I heard some guys talking at the coffee shop. They were saying that your competitor is working on a way to undercut your offer. Do you think that could be true?" Tom's expression shifted, unease flickering across his face. "What? Who said that?" "Just some guys I overheard," I said, casually swirling my drink as if it were an insignificant topic. But inside, I reveled in the power I held. The seeds of doubt I planted began to sprout. Over the following days, I made subtle comments that cultivated his fear. I would mention high-stakes deals and how others had failed because of overconfidence. I saw how Tom's assurance wavered, his bravado shattered by insecurities I had strategically unearthed. I felt a surge of satisfaction with each passing conversation, each planted seed of doubt. As the day of the pitch approached, my heart raced with anticipation. I had positioned the pieces of my plan perfectly, and I was ready to see it unfold. I pictured the moment Tom would face his investors, confidence shaken, only to realize the game had shifted entirely. But despite the triumph of the plan, there were darker stirrings inside me. A battle raged between the need for revenge and the flickers of my past life, my love for Sarah. Our laughter, our dreams, all reduced to ashes by her betrayal. I fought with myself. Was it really worth dismantling someone else's life? Those moments of moral conflict were always followed by the sharp reminder of my pain. Memories of Sarah wrapped around me, eliciting a pang deep in my heart. What would she think of this? I asked myself repeatedly. Would she regret her choices? Yet indulging those memories often felt like a dangerous pit, a reminder of everything I lost. By now, I was fueling the resentment that had taken root in my heart, and it was intoxicating. Revenge had morphed into a thirst for justice that blurred the lines between right and wrong. When the day of the business pitch arrived, I felt electrified. Tom had unwittingly woven his downfall with every boastful line he had delivered over drinks. Knowing he was on shaky ground gave me a high I had never experienced before. I found myself lurking nearby, taking solace in the reckoning that was about to unfold. I wanted to see him squirm. I wanted to watch the facade of confidence crumble. As I watched him walk into the conference room with his investors, I felt the weight of anticipation. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Would my plan succeed? Would the architect of my pain get what he deserved? Sweat beaded on his forehead, and I could see the shifting eyes of the investors. I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction as his confidence began to unravel. It was intoxicating. He stumbled over his words, faltering as he tried to maintain his cool demeanor. And in that moment, the veil lifted. I realized the power of that betrayal, twisted yet liberating. My emotions twisted as I witnessed him unraveling, dealing with the consequences that had so long eluded him. But as I stood there, the swirling feeling inside began to shift. The thrill of revenge tasted bitter. I had made a choice to dismantle someone else's life, but could I walk away from this unscathed? I wrestled with those thoughts as I watched Tom's world sway. This emotional roller coaster turned a transformation in my heart. I could see clearer now. Revenge wouldn't fill the emptiness that betrayed love had left behind. There were lessons hidden among the wreckage, like pearls encased in pain. Even so, here I was, right at the edge of my constructed world of revenge. Did I really want to become someone who had to live in the shadows of darkness? The scene played out in slow motion as I contemplated my next choice. I could feel the electricity in the air, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I had become a puppet master, pulling the strings of a life that hadn't belonged to me, not Tom's life, nor Sarah's. As the dust began to settle on this chapter of my revenge, I knew I had to make a choice. What would I do next? Would I continue down this dark path, or start to reclaim the true essence of my life? And with that thought echoing through my mind, I returned to my own reality. The battle for my heart and life had truly just begun. As I lingered in the shadows of my thoughts, reality began to set in. This grand game of revenge could not mask the bitter truth that scratched at the edges of my mind. Just as I was on the brink of stripping the last vestiges of Tom's confidence away, I stumbled upon a heart-wrenching revelation. I had acted meticulously, but I had overlooked the intricacies of the emotional web surrounding Sarah. It turned out she wasn't merely a pawn in our twisted game. She had been the mastermind all along. The day began like any other. I sat in my car, parked a few blocks away from the cafe where Tom and I had often met. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the pavement. I checked my phone, still buzzing with messages from Emily, who had been tirelessly supportive throughout this entire ordeal. "Be careful, Alex," she wrote. "Don't lose yourself in this." Those words felt like a warning bell, echoing in my mind as I set foot inside the cafe. Tom was already there, wearing his usual polished appearance. He waved me over with one of those effortless grins, but for the first time, I could see the cracks forming beneath the surface. A bead of sweat trailed down his temple, highlighting the tension in his usually carefree demeanor. As we engaged in idle chatter about business deals, my thoughts drifted elsewhere. "Hey, Alex," he said suddenly, "do you think Sarah is really supporting me? I just feel, I don't know, a little off lately. It's like she's not entirely in my corner." Those words hit me like a freight train, but something deeper tugged at me. Was Sarah's relationship with Tom purely one of lust? Or was there some hidden agenda behind the betrayal? I carefully masked my expression as I responded. "Maybe she's just worried about how much pressure you're under. You know how women feel about ambition." It was during that moment that I began to understand Sarah's role in this sordid affair. Her motivations were far more intricate than I had envisioned. She had used Tom, weaving him into her convoluted plan as a means to punish me for what she perceived as my failures. Each discussion I had with Tom revealed layers of her manipulation, and it turned my stomach. If she was the puppeteer, then what did that make me? A mere spectator in my own life. The last vestige of my vengeful excitement began to slip away like sand through my fingers. I stood up abruptly, leaving Tom mid-sentence as I stumbled out into the cool air. Suddenly filled with a mixture of rage and confusion, I fought to regain clarity. I couldn't just unleash the chaos I had planned and then step back, pretending I was on the outside looking in. Nope, it was clear that this was deeper than simple revenge. That night, insomnia plagued me as I swirled thoughts of Sarah and Tom in my weary mind. I replayed every scene, searching for the loopholes in their story. The betrayal had morphed into longing, and it sickened me to accept the truth. I sought comfort in Emily, who had been a steadfast anchor during this storm. When I confided in her, tears mingled with words of regret. How could she do this? I lamented. I thought I knew her. I thought we shared a life together. Emily leaned in and said, "Alex, people aren't always what they seem. Sometimes we're blinded by our own affection. You must confront both of them to find your truth." Her words resonated deeply within me. It was time. I couldn't allow Sarah and Tom to manipulate my life anymore. It was time to lay all the cards on the table and confront the chaos they both had created. The confrontation was set for the weekend. I arranged for a meeting at a local park, a place that had once been a sanctuary for Sarah and me. I felt every nerve in my body pulse with anxiety, but deep down I was resolute. As I stood there, surrounded by the looming trees, Sarah and Tom arrived. Their expressions varied between cautious curiosity and indistinguishable guilt. Without wasting time, I addressed them both. "It's time we stop playing these games and just lay everything out." They exchanged hesitant glances, unsure of what I would say next. Anger quaking through me, I continued, "I know all about your affair, but it's bigger than that, Sarah. You used Tom to get back at me, didn't you? This entire mess is rooted in manipulation." "What are you talking about?" Sarah shot back, her voice raising in denial. But the cracks in her facade were beginning to show. "Stop pretending," I yelled, my heart racing. "All this time, you've made me believe I was the villain while you played me like a fool. I have seen the truth of your heart and it's twisted. You betrayed not just me, but also Tom." Tom shifted uncomfortably. "What's going on, Sarah? You told me it was about Alex being distant." Her eyes widened in shock, the weight of truth crashing down on her. "No. Tom, she started, spiraling into a sea of excuses. But my heart had hardened against her words. "This is the emotional mess you created, both of you." I let each word slice through the air between us. "You made me the outcast while pretending for the world to see that everything was fine." The confrontation unfolded as raw emotions spilled into the air. Anger, remorse, and helplessness filled the space surrounding us as we grappled with the remnants of our choices. I could see Tom's confidence wavering, just as his dreams apparently were. I unleashed the shame they had brought upon me, revealing my inner turmoil, along with the cracks in their charade. I wanted them to fully feel the repercussions of their betrayal all along. It was public humiliation, a calculated unveiling of the chaos they fashioned derived solely from their underhanded moves. That's why I grew vicious, why I devised this plan, I finished, looking at them both decidedly. But what I want you to know is, revenge won't lead me to peace. I want you both to truly grasp what you've brought into my life. Silence hung in the air as their faces sank in realization. I watched them with a mix of satisfaction and sadness, knowing that they were left to grapple with the truth that had emerged from the wreckage. In the days following the confrontation, I chose a different path. I started to embrace the concept of forgiveness as a means of reclaiming my life. Time and distance became my allies. I refused to lift their shadows over my future. As Sarah and Tom faced the consequences of betrayal, I slowly discovered my own potential for healing. Emily remained by my side, guiding me with her unwavering support. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Alex. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment, she had told me. The journey was anything but easy, but step by step, I learned to embrace hope and trust again. I recognized that while revenge had felt powerful, it was ultimately forgiveness that held the real strength. Months later, I stepped into a brighter future, leaving Sarah and Tom behind, consumed by remorse for the choices they made. I breathed in the fresh air of liberation, finally reclaiming a life where I could embrace the joy it could bring. My mind was cleared, and my heart was open to a new chapter. No longer a man void of trust, I had transformed the narrative of my betrayal into one of resilience and growth. I had endured an emotional storm, fought through my darkest moments, and emerged standing tall. It was time to live again, free of their chains, ready to navigate the world on my own terms.